Hey YouTube, it's actually been a minute, y'all. I'm literally just trying to check to see what the sound quality is like. It's been a minute since I've been out here in these YouTube streets. So I'm just gonna familiarize myself back with everything. I hope everyone's good. I'm actually super excited to sort of come in and get a whole new vibe going, sort of starting this new segment because I've been watching the development of Love and Marriage Huntsville. I haven't necessarily done this content a lot lately. I haven't done any content in the last few months, but this content in particular. So I was super, super inspired just by the new season and seeing how juicy things already are. So I just kind of wanted to dive into it and see how everything kind of unfolds for us. But we have a lot coming, guys. Hopefully my sound quality is good and y'all can hear me perfectly fine, because we are definitely going to be diving into some stuff. So without further ado, let's get the party started, y'all. Okay, so I think everything should be perfectly fine. I'm actually just gonna see how the countdown goes, y'all. Okay, we good. We're good. Okay, so I think sorry, y'all. So now that we know that everything is good and popping, what is up, y'all? We are going to be unpacking all of the juice and tea that was in Love and Marriage Huntsville season premiere, because there's so much in there to unpack already. I feel like so much has shifted in terms of the dynamics of everything, and there's a lot of real tea that's actually in there, because I feel like everybody's a little bit everyone's got their masks on a little bit. Everybody's kind of wearing their perfect face type thing. So we want to unpack a few of the stuff and just kind of dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that they kind of left food for thought with, because I feel like they had conversations, and for them it kind of seemed like they feel like they know what time it is and it's clear, but for myself, I was still left with a few questions. So we're gonna dive into it and just break it all down, guys, and really just unpack some stuff here. Before we get into it, I'm just going to, this is what I was spending my time doing for y'all. I'm trying to be better at this.
You're so messy because you post that picture of the guy's Atlanta trip with Reese in it.
Maurice wants to be the lawyer that answers questions on a technical basis.
Is this story made up?
Are you really asking me this? You were there.
All y'all cheaters. Every last one of them cheaters.
I don't give a
Well, if you found out that he cheated, what you gonna do?
It is by far a deal breaker for me.
I don't want Maurice's marriage to end over some
picture kind of up the man code, didn't it?
I overhear L.I.F.E and Destiny talking.
Why would you think I was talking about you? You said, no, that's not what I thought. It was the fact that you were talking to my enemy. The direct question is, did you sleep with the linebacker?
I need to think that you were going to be involved in it.
This ain't a game, this ain't a game. We keep it moving all day, all night.
So there was a lot in there, and we kind of had an action-packed first episode. There was a good 6 gritty scenes. Each of the scenes kind of dived into stuff, but not really unpack the stuff. I'm sure we're only obviously getting a few minutes of it at a time, but I felt like I wanted to kind of revisit or start the process of getting back into these YouTube streets by revisiting this content, because I like to be able to just do some psychoanalysis even with myself, so it's always nice to be able to watch these reality. That's why this segment is called Keeping Up with the Real Tea, right? Because this is all about the reality TV aspect of stuff. We're kind of low-key getting reality, but not the fullness of the actual real reality. We're still getting, the surface of certain things. We're not necessarily seeing all of everything that happens. Obviously, the cameras are only following them for a limited time throughout their entire experience of navigating through these stuff. So we're going to go ahead and start with the first scene, y'all. So the first scene, we have Marsau and Tisha kind of having dinner. And that was a very telling scene for me. I felt like Marsau's he gives like this fatherly vibe and energy to Tisha. And I feel like Tisha, I really want to understand her dynamics with her dad, actually, because she falls into the role of the submissive fairly easily with Marsau, but I'm sure that's because he's quite a dominant masculine as well. But I see Tisha in the same breath in saying that. I see her standing up for herself a little bit more. I see her actually using her voice a little bit more. I see her kind of, putting on her big girl pants and actually, I guess, speaking up for herself, which is nice. But the way he shut her down, I was like, dang, Marsau. Can she get a word in? I want to hear what she's going to say with she who shall not be named, because that's how they were treating it. He's like, if they tell you to bark, what are you going to do? Are you going to bark? Well, sometimes, personally speaking, sometimes I do bark back. It depends on the situation, the scenario, and the person that's actually really taking me there. But I get it. The situation is big. I don't like how Marsau's constantly downplaying Tisha's feelings on these situations, because I feel like even if he's not bothered about what people think, much like Maurice put across to Kimmi, we'll dive into that in scene 3 and unpack that too, because there was some stuff there too. Okay, that part. But yeah, I feel like he kind of dismisses Tisha a lot. And I feel like a lot of the times Tisha seems like she internalizes a lot, which is why we get a lot of this like immature tendencies and childish, I wouldn't even actually say childlike, childish behavior from her. And I feel like that's because she's internalizing a lot. So it's actually stunting her emotional maturity. It's actually stunting her emotional growth, because she's not giving herself room to work through these feelings. And he's not really giving her enough to be able to navigate through these feelings herself. He's just kind of like, put those feelings away, Tisha. And she's like, okay. That part. However, I think that it would be interesting as time kind of goes on to see how things kind of develop with Tisha, because she is coming into her own. She is coming out of her shell. So I would like to see more of her really growing beyond that little. I feel like she's between the age of 4, 5, 6, potentially, maybe somewhere over into 7. I feel like those ages are the age that I'm picking up on that may be very telling about this personality type of Tisha that we kind of like continue to see appear on the screens as this immature young girl that doesn't necessarily seem too confident, seems like she's really quite insecure, seems a little bit needy, if I'm honest. So it would be definitely interesting to understand a little bit more about her dynamics with her paternal side, because we see what she's like with, her maternal side. Her mama's a hoot. So we know what that's like. And we know that she's not necessarily the healthiest feminine. So I'm sure Tisha has her own issues in growing up in that environment with her, but that's neither here nor there. I think with the dynamics with Marceau, he needs to give her room to be able to, because he just literally, even when she mentioned about like the trip situation, she sounded like she was genuinely upset that she couldn't go, but he didn't care. So there was no point in her sort of like fighting a corner for him to care about her feelings. I'm not saying that she needs to put her feelings on him, and he's very good at his own emotional management of not taking on other people's feelings, but he's also very selfish in that same respect, in terms of him not being, too open to getting entangled in other people's spaces emotionally. So it's really quite tricky, actually. But I think that this is why they're actually a pretty good suit and a good match, to be fair, as far as Tisha and Marceau, because say what you want about him, like he manages her emotional tides really well, better than she does. And I think that's a part, again, of the issue in stunting her growth. So hopefully he can sort of loosen the reins a little bit so that she can get the room to be able to grow by being able to express herself and really talking through some of her own needs and desires on things, or even just sharing. God, he shut her down when she wanted to say, "Oh, girl." I wanted to find out what "oh, girl" was saying and what like Tisha's viewpoint and perspective on the situation was, but Marceau went with it. So yet we still do not know much about that situation, but definitely want to see how that kind of evolves. That dynamic has been sort of playing out since season 1. Tisha's come a long way. I think Marceau is growing as well. Not as quickly as Tisha, just because he's a little bit more resistant to her growth. But I think that her growth is forcing him to be able to grow because he's having to adapt as she's growing so quickly. So that's what's up. Kudos, snaps in the room for Tisha. Now we move on to scene 2. Martel and Lou. Now I couldn't remember his name actually when I was like taking notes on like the different scenes and stuff. So I'm glad that they repeated it just in time. But Lou is Tiffany's husband. They're new to the gang. We didn't see Tiffany in tonight's episode, or yesterday's episode, I should say. I think that people are having a warm time, a challenging time, I should say, warming up to Tiffany. So she wasn't in the first episode, probably for that reason. And I think that, I don't know, for me personally, I don't necessarily have an issue with Tiffany, but I do know that she gets bad publicity and she's not very well liked on social media. I'm not really out here in the social media streets like that, but that is something that, I mean, it's a known fact. In the reunion, they even sort of like discussed it and dissected it a little bit. So I guess they're kind of taking their time with their own, is kind of like slowly sort of like putting her back into the deep end. But let's talk about some stuff during this meeting with Martel and Lou. Now, these dynamics are actually really interesting this season because I didn't know that these people were getting as close. Like, I didn't know that Tisha and Destiny were developing a relationship like that. And I didn't really realize that Martel and Lou were developing a relationship like that. But here we are, season 4. So Martel was being his usual Martel self. Deflecting just a little bit because I understand with him navigating through the situation with Mell, because Mell act like she's so chilled and she's really bitter. And the bitterness just oozes out in between the cracks of the chillness. I don't know if you guys kind of like pick up that vibe in her radar, but I understand that for Martel, it's having to deal with the bitterness that's oozing out in like the discreet behavior that she does and the little digs that she kind of takes at him intentionally. And I'm sure he knows that it's intentional that she's not picking up her phone, which is why he has an issue with it. Pray for them, y'all, because they have 4 kids. Martel's got 5. They're going to need a lot of assistance in terms of putting some positivity over their space. Melody is still navigating through her bitterness. It's going to take her a while to navigate through it. They were together for like well over a decade, so it's going to take her a good while to actually get over that. It may take a good couple of decades, to be fair, to really be able to get it out of her system, just because it takes almost double the time sometimes, depending on how deeply you were hurt, depending on the initial attachment style, depending on how deeply you attached, a lot of different factors. So they were together for a long time. She had to let go of her husband. She had to let go of her friend. She had to let go of the father of her children, who was also her husband, because that was a completely different dynamic in comparison to the dynamic that they're sharing now. Right now, they just baby mama, baby daddy type dynamic, pretty much. So they've kind of like downgraded, and I don't mean that like in a, judgmental way. It's just in terms of the dynamics and the scope, in terms of societal standards, if you will, how these stereotypes go. So they've kind of downgraded with their dynamics, and the divorce is definitely sort of the divorce. You can see the divorce on both of them. Obviously, like last season, Marceau really sort of put out there to Mell, like she feels the way that she feels about the divorce now because she's winning. She's at the winning streak of the divorce now because, the dynamics were that Martel went out of the marriage and he even created a life outside of the marriage. And now, he's on Front Street looking like a damn fool, for lack of a better way of putting it, because he's literally like lost everything. And I want to speak on this as well, because this was something that I've been observing in the last few seasons, like Martel's narcissistic personality type that tends to show up in his self-sabotage behavior, or the two are in cohorts, is what I should say, in terms of the way that he in terms of his battle style, right? The art of war. That's why I like to do these things. Basically, I love this like analysis, to be able to observe and understand these aspects of ourselves and how we kind of like engage with them. But like Marsau+'s warrior, right? When he gets into his narcissistic personality type, he then starts to kind of project and deflect, and he consumes the entire space with that I don't want to like be the only person that's looking bad in the situation. Like that's basically what's activating his narcissistic personality type. And I think he needs to kind of like really take some time to be able to understand why he doesn't, like, I don't know what trauma he experienced in his childhood that has put him in a position where he's fighting so hard to, how can I put it, to protect his character, but low-key he's actually assassinating his character in the process, because that distortion that has been created has taken him away or removed him from the core essence of that character. I hope I'm making sense, guys. I hope you all are keeping up. But real talk, he needs to go back to whatever situation he is still navigating. Okay. Just got the clarity on this, y'all. Daddy, again, this is like a lot of daddy issues taking place here on this set, like a lot of daddy issue wounds kind of showing up in terms of the dynamics of how things are playing out here. His self-sabotage. So because his child, right, Martel's inner child, didn't get the opportunity to be able to experience the two-parent household, not like Ariane said that she did when she didn't really understand the concept, but the actual concept of a two-parent household. Yes, that was some shade, but I mean, hey, she put herself on blast for that one. So because he didn't necessarily have that dynamic, a part of himself is kind of still in resistance to being able to hold it. There's a part of himself that doesn't necessarily feel deserving of it. Potentially the little boy who develops self-worth issues and low self-esteem from the lack of a present father figure in his life. I think he said like his uncle kind of stepped up, but it would still not necessarily fill that void, I guess, of wanting that identification with self. So I think because he hasn't necessarily sort of like healed from that wound, I think that that's the thing that continues to trigger this narcissistic personality type that we keep seeing. And then he goes into the personality type of self-sabotaging everything that he's kind of building and putting in place for himself, which is really sad. Can I just say, like, low-key, when I was observing him doing this over the last few seasons, my heart's gone out to him. I've prayed for him a few times in my prayer closet because I can see that he's really deeply hurt and he doesn't actually realize how hurt he is because he puts up this bravado. And I think that it's almost like he wants to then inflict himself with pain. He wants to then put himself in a position. I don't think it's a conscious thing. It's clearly a subconscious thing that he's kind of doing because this little boy that didn't experience a dad in the way that he felt like he needed to be able to see a man, to be able to exemplify a man, his morality is all off. Like his moral compass is all off because he says something and then his actions doesn't necessarily align with that. And again, if we have exemplary experiences, or if we have someone, a role model, to be able to exemplify something, it makes it easier for us to be able to put those actions into motion. Martel didn't necessarily have that. So he is trying to figure out how to do this process, but he doesn't feel deserving, and he doesn't realize that he doesn't feel deserving because of the bravado that he's now believing himself, because he's basically built up the outside and the outside looks the part, but the inside is still infested. The inside is still yearning for that paternal figure. And now he's given that same illness. And I'm getting emotional, guys, because I don't even think like people really understand the magnitude of what they do when they put themselves in these types of situations where genetically they pass on these types of codings and patterns to their children, but also outside of that, they subject them to their same hurt and pain and trauma. Like, it makes me sad that his children are now having to go through this. And also equally for Mell, because she's not all the way out of this either. Okay, because Martel's whole thing was Mell cheated on me too. Yada, yada, yada. 5 years ago, we were both cheating on each other. Now, let's unpack that. Did Mell cheat? I think because, you know, Messi own done sort of played back when Mell had the discussion with Martel's mom, and she kind of said, well, I don't think that I was cheating because I wasn't living with him. We weren't necessarily together. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think her sort of going off and doing that, again, Martel deflecting, because he basically wants to create this narrative that other people are wronging him because he doesn't realize that he deserves to be happy, unfortunately. So he clouds his own happiness with these distortions of people wronging him because he felt wronged by dad. And potentially mom in the process as well, because she wasn't able to hold the fort down in the way that he would have hoped and liked. So I think there's a lot of conversations that needs to be had in terms of like all of that dynamic, because there's a lot of healing that needs to take place in these places for these guys. But I think Mell, obviously, I think that was in retaliation to her finding out initially that he did have the whole Ariane situation going on, and she didn't really know where things were going to go. So again, he kind of took her into a place of basically mirroring his behavior, because she now got wounded and infected with the same illness, rejection, betrayal, you know, loss of trust, all of these things. So it's interesting to see him deflect in terms of the context of the situation and then focus on her behavior, but not necessarily really fully grasp the concepts that her behavior was in reaction to his initial behavior. Again, the narcissist, and I really I want to put this across because I know that like the narcissist epidemic is like a real thing in collective consciousness at the minute, but these are hurt people kind of like hurting themselves and hurting people in the process. Technically, they're hurting themselves by hurting people in the process to be able to continue to keep themselves disconnected as a way to be able to protect themselves. It's a false sense of security. But I think that it's just telling to kind of like see that these two had been together for as long as they were, because I think that Mel has a lot of daddy issues as well that she hasn't necessarily sort of all the way addressed. It's interesting that, you know, infidelity played itself out in her dynamic as well, because if I'm not mistaken, I think she may have been the illegitimate child for her dad outside of his committed relationship. So yeah, I guess as far as scene 2, what we want to know, the question they left us with is, did Mel cheat? Did Mel cheat? Because I think that was the thing that I was still slightly confused about. I think they both needed to sit down and have a conversation about their standard as far as what they consider cheating. I think for Mel, because Martel emotionally checked out of the relationship by getting involved with someone emotionally, as well as physically, I think she emotionally checked out from that point. And then she obviously, again, mirrored the behavior. So who knows? Who knows how the situation is going to play out with these guys, but it's good TV. Now, moving on to scene 3. Scene 3, we have Kimmi and Maurice. Now, they're talking about the infamous post that Marsau did. Marsau, I don't know. I feel like that wasn't the best thing for Marsau to do. I get that he doesn't care about what people think. But again, it comes down to he should be mindful to want to protect the mental welfare of his family as well, because he's saying that, you know, he's wanting to protect his family, or he's wanting to like focus on family now that he's kind of like done the trip to Africa. By the way, what do y'all think happened in Africa when Marsau went to Africa? Going back to scene 1, because yeah, Tisha wasn't happy with that, but he ended up doing it anyways. What are you guys' take on that? Comment down below. Let me know what you guys are thinking on that situation, because I was a little bit like, okay, that's what we're doing. Okay. So with the Kimmi and Maurice situation, going back to scene 3, right? With the Kimmi and Maurice situation, I think that Maurice handled the situation well. I think him and Marsau are both very emotionally well maintained guys. They've got this whole macho sort of like masculine energy. So I think that he handled it fairly well as far as being attentive to Kimmi's feelings as well. I think he's a little bit better at that than Marsau is, even though they share that same personality type of being a pretty solid alpha male. And when I say alpha male, I mean more of a dominant in this respect, because that's one of the personality types or traits. In their dynamic, Maurice is clearly the dominant, but Kimmi's also fairly dominant, feminine as well. She chooses, you can tell that she chooses, you know, to be submissive and allow for her feminine to kind of match up and engage with his masculine in a way where he can be comfortable in his masculine energy and she can be comfortable in her feminine energy, which is what I like about Kimmi, actually. I think that she does it really well. She didn't really press the matter too much. She said what she had to say, and that was that. She was just kind of like, you know, did you cheat? I just want to know, yes or no. And Maurice answered the question. I still want to say indirectly. Because he then continued on with an explanation. And I understand why he continued on with an explanation, because I felt like he needed to be able to give her a full context of why it's a no. But she's like, I don't need the details. I just need the facts, you know? give me the bullet points on the situation pretty much. So what are you guys' thoughts on that? Did Maurice cheat? How do you guys feel about the situation? I know obviously after the interview that Ariane Curry had with Tasha K. I think that's her name. Not Tasha K. I know Tasha K. We all know Tasha at this point. We know she ain't got it. So I was talking about Ariane. I don't know if that's her surname, but anyways, Ariane sort of alleged that Maurice was there with a linebacker as well as Marsau, and everybody was getting, it was like a double date for three people. Well, three couples, essentially. They were all sort of enjoying each other's company, much like how the guys usually do for their group trips and stuff like that. So she put that allegation out there, and now Maurice is having to kind of like defend himself against it. What are you guys' thoughts? What are your opinion on the situation? It will definitely be interesting to see how that plays out, because I don't think we've seen the end of that situation just yet. I definitely think that that's going to continue to rear its ugly head for Kimmi and Maurice, because I think these guys have been dealing with sensitive allegations against their union for the last few seasons as well, to be fair, and they've been holding strong thus far. I think Kaiwa sort of alleged that Kimmi was a side chick. And I understand maybe potentially why she feels that way. It's not necessarily potentially the accuracy of the situation. Maurice may have gotten emotionally involved with Kimmi before the signing of his divorce papers, or the finalizing, if you will, of his divorce potentially. So that may be why Kaiwa feels the way that she does. However, I think that they had already had a discussion that the relationship was finished. And for Maurice, the relationship was well and truly finished. And he allowed for himself to be disengaged from her emotionally, so much so that he had the emotional capacity for another person, and that person was Kimmi. And I can see why as well, because Kimmi seems like so real tea on this, right? The whole situation with Maurice and Kimmi. Apparently Maurice was like a little bit more vivacious, let's call it that, when he was with Kaiwa, and then he kind of moved down to Huntsville, got into New Life, and I guess Kaiwa feels like Kimmi just kind of got slotted into New Life version of Maurice. And I can understand her feeling like she's been replaced, and low-key feeling like it was a premeditated replacement to some degree. Yes, she's right, and no at the same time. I mean, yes, she's right as far as like her feelings on the situation, because she was still emotionally invested and involved. But unfortunately, she checked out of the marriage physically. And because of that physical disconnect, Maurice then disconnected emotionally and then made himself available. And Kimmi picked up where Kaiwa left off and fell short at this point. So she can't really be mad at Kimmi for that. I think she let her situation slip through her fingers, and what she needs to do is accept the errors of her ways that basically caused her the consequences that she's living with now, because that's her reality. She did that to herself, and she may need to go to some therapy, talk to somebody, girl, about maybe how you feel about how quickly, because I think that's the thing that she may be feeling like it was quick how Maurice moved on, but for him it kind of felt like he took his time and he was attentive and considerate with it. But such is life, sometimes we're not always received in the way that we intend to be. So I think that that's something that they both have to work on individually. But we want to know what your thoughts are on the cheating allegations for Maurice. So yeah, that part. The fourth scene was really interesting and very telling, actually. Like I said before, I didn't realize that Tisha and Destiny had developed such a strong friendship. But it was interesting to see Destiny kind of playing the part that I feel like Mell played on last season. And it's interesting that she's playing it out with Tisha. I don't know how you guys felt about that, but I felt like watching Destiny do her studio session with Tisha, like having the scene there, I felt like this is surreal because I watched this last year. This was Mell's story, and observing Destiny sort of coming into her destiny. It's very interesting. It's actually very, very interesting. I thought it was just weird how everything kind of like panned out. So this is funny, right? So the first thing that I got from this, and you guys can tell me how you feel about it, right? I felt like with Destiny and Mell, they're kind of like charging up the and this is like no shade, no tea to nobody, okay? But charging up the bitter baby mama club. What do I mean by that? So like the music that they're making definitely is empowering, it's uplifting, and I'm sure that like even for myself, like I would listen to that, and I'm not even like in those types of situations, but I want to be like, you know, that part, right? But at the same time, I feel like the stories that they're navigating through such a beautiful sort of like reflection of their healing that's taking place. I feel like they're kind of like missing out on that. But I'm really one for conscious music, to be fair. Like I feel like even when I hear, you know, rappers spitting about surface stuff, chicks, their lifestyle, all of that kind of stuff, I'm like, okay, well, there's a better way to be able to put this into context, because you can use your words effectively in other ways as well. And I feel like that's the situation that I'm kind of feeling with these two women. I like the fact that they're utilizing their pain to be able to speak to other women's pain and help them through whatever it is that they're navigating through. But I think there's also other ways to be able to empower ourselves as well, in terms of the language that we use. I feel like Destiny's story now is, okay, so I got married, I left my corporate, like really good situation, started my own business, got married, I had the child. She even said it like, thought I was going to have the white picket fence. It didn't necessarily work out that way. Now here I am. That was like fast forward real quickly, because obviously like their marriage deteriorated very, very quickly after the birth of her child. That's a sad story, and there is a market out there for that. Do we think Destiny can sing, y'all? Let's comment down below on that one. Do we think Destiny can sing? How do we feel about Destiny developing a music career? Is this a thing that we're interested in or not? I don't know how I feel about it just yet. I thought that her voice was okay. I'm not going to say that she can't sing. I'm sure they're going to auto-tune the hell out of it, and she's going to sound dope. As we do. Anybody can sing these days. So I thought that her talent was decent, and it's up to her to basically develop her skills and really push through to get somewhere with it. Now, she has a platform. She's seen what it's done for Mell. She wants to go on the glow up, which is good. She's kind of like, you know, pulling out the talents out the bag and trying her best to get the bag. And I can knock her for that, really. I feel like Tisha is slightly naive. Tisha's slightly naive. What do I mean by that? I don't know when she was actually at Mell's house for the tacos and all that kind of stuff, if that was like after the reunion. But I highly doubt it. It might have been before the reunion. I'm not too sure. But hell, maybe it might have been even last week, to be fair, because Mell's a little bit No. She seemed like she had made up her mind by the time they got around to filming, but she might be putting on that character for filming as well, because I find that a little bit with Mel. She likes to play up for the camera. She likes to act. She actually enjoys acting. Yeah, she's kind of put that out there as, one of her talents. But I mean, in terms of her real life, she actually likes acting, is what I've seen. So I feel like with Tisha, why I said that she's naive, I find her to be naive anyways, is because she did, like, her and Mel went at it at the reunion. I don't know if she was like watching the same thing that I watched, or she was in the same space presently when I was watching the reunion, but I'm like, dang, I thought y'all was cool. I guess not. Like, I literally anticipated that they were going to go back to frenemies after this. And I think that that's what Tisha needs to like really understand in terms of the dynamics that she has with Mel. They are frenemies. Mel is that sorority girl type, I guess, persona. And she can be very catty. She can be very petty. She can be very childish. And I think that Tisha needs to be honest with herself about the dynamics that she's actually experiencing with Mel, because they have been like, in the last couple of seasons, they've been up and down as far as their relationship, as far as the friendship being able to actually be salvaged and get back to a place of like being stable. They haven't achieved that just yet. So for her to say that she didn't realize that they were enemies when she was like literally screaming out at Mel at the reunion that she was out to break up her marriage, when she's carrying, like, this is what I'm trying to say, like, Tisha internalizes a lot of feelings, and because she's not consciously and actively working through a lot of these feelings that she's internalizing, when she starts to project the feelings and people start to respond or react to her projections after the fact, she tends to be a little bit oblivious, because she lives in denial. She lives by denial, in denial. But she needs to sort of like come around to being a little bit more honest with herself about what it is that she feels about people, because she's saying that Mel's not like an enemy for her, but she low-key kind of like approached the situation at the reunion like they were enemies. She's like, you were out to basically sabotage my family. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is that not what an enemy is? Like, I don't get it. So Tisha might need to get her spectacles on and get a reality check about what's actually going on with the dynamics that they're actually experiencing. And that is her being able to keep up with the real tea, because the real tea is they're frenemies. They ain't friends. They ain't all the way enemies, because they're still having to be in the same social circle due to the kind of work dynamic that they have. But, and however, they're frenemies. Okay? Just know what it is and keep it at that. I think even their mamas got into it last season, so I don't know what the hell Tisha's talking about. Like, clearly, the energy's even like moving itself over into their mums' spaces. Mind you, Miss Wonder and Miss, I can't remember Mel's mum's name. I don't know if Maureen. I'm not too sure, but yeah, the energy is spilling over. So Tisha needs to be like all the way 100 about what the situation is and keep it true. Like, don't do the whole, because I that's another toxic trait of like people who internalize. They'll internalize and act like nothing's going on, but then they'll vomit all over you sporadically, just randomly one time. And then when you're still kind of like in disbelief about them, kind of like projectile vomiting all over you, and you're still recovering from that, they're like, well, what you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. We good, and you're like, we is not good. Okay, you have real deep feelings, real dark feelings on your heart towards me. We are not okay. So I think that Tisha needs to like be a little bit more honest with herself about like what she really feels when it comes to situations, because I think that she's confusing emotional management for emotional suppression, and they're two completely different things. You don't have to suppress yourself to manage your feelings. You can actually like actively navigate through your feelings, because yeah, you need to. So that's what I'd say about that situation. Now, scene 5, we have Kimmi and Mell. Petty Melanie. Mell is being petty AF. So low-key, I feel like she came there to kind of like get the tea on the Maurice situation when it comes to Timmy. She didn't all the way project, but she did plant subconscious seeds. And I observed her doing that when she was like, what would you do if you found out that he cheated? So now that seed's going to be running around in the back of Kimmy's subconscious, and I'm sure it's going to want to continue to, get itself validated and have an experience. And, the fear, if it's fed by fear, then it will grow and manifest quicker, which is why I said that the Maurice and Kimmi situation is not finished just yet. In terms of like these cheating allegations, whenever is it really? But Mel's petty for like inviting Kimmi like to the sleepover and not Destiny and Tisha. Like that's very high school. Well, let me not say that. That's very college like. Because I feel like, again, this is the sorority personality type that's kind of like coming out. Very, 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 very childish. She doesn't need to be continuing to perpetuate. Like, she already did this like 2 thingies back. And she's still trying to basically perpetuate the same thing. But I get it. They all do like events every season. Someone has to pick what event they're going to do and, note down whatever the event's going to be and stuff like that. And this was her event, and I get it. But to have like an intimate sort of like setting like that, and then, yeah, it's just weird. It's weird. Like, she's doing it to basically get a reaction out of the guys. Like, Mel's toxic in a lot of different ways. Like, she plays nice. She's better at dressing up her narcissistic personality than Martel, because Martel's very raw with it. He doesn't really know how to dress it up. And this is why, like, they complemented each other so well, because she was able to handle a lot of the masking of certain things. But yeah, that's that's petty, even for Melanie, but she's done it before, so it's not really that surprising. I don't like the fact that she planted that seed for Kimmi, but it had to be said as well, because it is going to leave room for discussion, because it was something that was going on in their friendship circle. So I do get it. She just needs to be a little bit more aware, because, and I can't even say that she's not aware, because I think that Mel's actually very intentional, and that's the thing that like jars me about the situation. Like, I see her little demon that's a little bit mischievous, and it wants to be out here stirring the pot and like making trouble. And if it's like, well, if my situation is this way, to level the playing field, because Melanie doesn't like to lose. And it feels like she's lost in terms of the dynamic with her marriage situation, because there are other people here who are still engaging in their marriages. And because of that aspect of the situation, I don't think that she overtly projected, but I do think that she covertly projected and planted that seed for Kimmi. And I'm hoping that Kimmi is emotionally mature enough to be able to navigate through that. I'm hoping that her demons about her relationship and her marriage are secure enough for her to be able to navigate through the psychological gameplay that will come with those types of thoughts being put out there. That's all I'm going to say on that situation. But Mel's petty as hell. As the seasons kind of go on, I'm starting to see, even last season, I actually saw a lot of Mell's character. And I know that like the way that Martel was saying certain things made him appear to be not such a nice guy, right? You know, he was just putting stuff out there, but he did have points to what he was saying. He did sort of put out there that he had needs that wasn't necessarily being met. And again, as a wife, it is her duty to be able to sort of like meet those needs. And what do I mean by that? I mean, it's healing needs. Like, I don't think that Martel even knew that he had these issues. He probably still doesn't even understand or realize how deep these daddy issue wounds go, and why or how it actually broke down his home. So him getting back into another situation would be very, very complicated for him to even know how to navigate through any of the situation, because conflict resolution is not necessarily his strong suit, and he tends to deflect and project when he's kind of like, when he's in a space and he feels like his back is against the wall type thing. It's just his armor. So I think that with the dynamics with Melanie, I'm starting to see that she's actually also quite manipulative. She's actually also quite calculated in the way that she handles things. I know that Kimmi, and it was interesting how Kimmi kind of like called her out on the like energy shift when it came to the whole situation of her talking about Tisha. But yeah, that's what I appreciate about Kimmi. Like, she'll see something, say something, and she'll just keep it true with you all the time. I think that Mell answered the question, but I don't think that she fully, well, we only saw a few minutes of their conversation, right? So I can't really speak on it, but we didn't see that she fully digressed into what it was that hurt her about the situation, because she was like, I don't know what they said, but Destiny was passing on the information to Tisha, like she was basically like ear up against the wall listening type thing. So yeah, I guess she didn't really like open up to Kimmi about the fact that she felt like Tisha and her are now at a place where they're enemies, you know. She just kind of brushed it off a little bit, you know, about what was going on at the reunion, saying repeating what Tisha said about her pretty much just kind of putting aside the situation to do with her previously, I guess, accusing Marsau of cheating as well, her and Martel. Because I think that was a whole situation for like season 2, if I'm not mistaken. So with them putting that whole thing into the stratosphere of all of this, I think bringing that back up reminded Mell of when they were in, because they were literally in a war zone then, and that was like one of the shots that Mell and Martel fired when they were in a war zone, you know. And I think that both of them actually started to war with Tisha and Marsau around about that time, because I believe that they know things about the dynamics of the relationship with Tisha and Marsau, and they're trying to let Kimmi know something, and not Kimmi, Tisha know something. And because they're not able to come all the way out and say certain things because she's so heavily in denial, they just leave her there, to be fair, and they just don't bother with it. But I think Mell was definitely sort of petty for doing the whole party situation, but we're going to see how that plays out anyways, because she's out here looking to hurt some feelings, because she felt like her feelings were hurt when Destiny was talking to Tisha about her. That part, okay, that's the real tea, because that's why we're here to keep up with the real tea and unpack the real tea, okay? Not just all the stuff that they give us. We want to dive a little bit deeper into some of the stuff that they're showing us in their body language and far beyond that, because there's been so many spirits and personality types to show up in this one little episode already. We close out the season premiere with the family dinner to be able to resolve the issue with Maurice and Marsau. And this is where Kimmi and Maurice square up with Marsau and Tisha. Now, I feel like Tisha has her man's back as always. For the most part, she's always Team Marsau, which I respect about her. I like the way that she handles those aspects of situations, because Marsau is a pretty sometimes he makes it difficult to back him, man. I can't lie. He's one of them guys. He puts himself in such situations, it makes it hard to actually like fight his corner. But what do you guys think? Was Marsau wrong for actually posting the picture? Fun and games aside, was he wrong for posting the picture? If you ask me, which I'm asking me, so don't worry, I'm answering the question. Asking myself, I would say that he was wrong. He was wrong for posting the picture. If he wanted to basically like confirm that he was there, that should have been something that they did within like a group text or something. I get that he wanted like the public to know that Maurice was there as well, but that was just putting his own brother in the firing line of like being incriminated for a crime that we have yet to basically prove him guilty of. The family dinner was interesting because I think we got to see Kimmi just being the straight shooter that she is. She just called it out for what it was. She was like, why'd you have to do that post type thing, you know? It is what it is, I guess. I think people are sometimes selfish about the way that they do things, and Kimmi was just calling out Marsau for being selfish in the way that he handled the situation, because he didn't take into consideration how everybody else was going to be affected by what he had to put out there to the world. And I don't know that he had to put it out there to the world, or why he felt like he needed to put it out there to the world, considering he doesn't care what people think, right? Hypocrisy. But anyways, I think in seeing how Kimmi handled the situation, she was very direct with Marsau. I think that Marsau, he handled the situation okay as well. I think that this was like a good class in conflict resolution, because neither of them kind of like got combative to the point where it was like, you know, walls went up. Like everyone knew they were coming together to have a conversation, what they were going to have a conversation about. They were ready to unpack it. They handled it like adults. Tisha backed her man really well, and Kimmi stood up for her man really well. So I guess that was pretty much, you know, what it was for this season premiere episode. What did you guys think about it? What were your thoughts on Mell and Martel's cheating allegations? Do you feel like Maurice went ahead and cheated? Do you feel like Marsau was wrong for going ahead to social media and posting the photo that possibly incriminated his own brother? And do you feel like Mell's wrong for her petty actions that she's doing when it comes to like not inviting Tisha and Destiny? I know that they aren't friends and everything like that, but how do you guys feel about that situation as well? Let me know about all of that awesomeness down below. And we'll definitely chop this up again. I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to actually come in and like do this tonight, but I felt like it was a nice introduction back into these YouTube streets. I am going to be coming back with some of my usual content as well. So I think tomorrow I'm going to be getting my astro analysis up. Maybe we'll kind of see how the day goes, because your girl's got tons of responsibilities these days and it's hard to juggle and keep up with everything. But if I am going to go live, you guys will definitely get notification of a live stream. And the intention behind me being able to sort of like come back and bring this kind of content back is to really sort of give you guys an opportunity to maybe see where you share some of the same symmetries or similarities in terms of your own patterns, and maybe even trigger some food for thought within your subconscious and highlight some sort of blind spot that you maybe weren't necessarily aware of, in terms of like your connections to these characters and why you may feel connected to them, and how your situation may actually be reflective to theirs, and maybe what parts of yourself has actually found yourself in the similar situations that they found themselves in. I mean, that's actually the aim of the game with this particular segment. So I hope you guys liked it. Definitely comment down below and let me know if you guys found it to be useful, helpful in any particular way. And yeah, be sure to like the video if you like my vibe. Definitely be sure to subscribe, share the video as well if you feel like, there's somebody else that may actually be mirroring these relationships, and the synopsis on their illnesses may be a little bit similar, and you want to low-key kind of like send them a message. I don't mind passing on that message and being the messenger covertly, I guess. So you can plant some seeds through me. But on that note, y'all, I'm going to love you guys and leave it there for you guys. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for watching. And I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, guys, ta-ra. Mwah. Sending much love. God bless. Take care.
They said to hold her back, they never seem to leave her head and tend to keep her mind at war. All the things they said to hold her back, they keep her locked inside of all the times when she's been hurt before.
Bye, guys. Signing out.